apocalypse. Oh, I'm psyched for the apocalypse. Oh, really? No, I mean, first of all, the word apocalypse. I mean, I'm psyched for the apocalypse in every sense of the word, but think about the word. The word, okay, got the book of the apocalypse, right? Okay, it's the last book of the Bible, the last book of the New Testament. And okay, so it describes the end of the world and everything, but people get it all wrong. Okay, apocalypse in Greek, it just means unveiling, uncovering, apo, away from, and kalupto, meaning to cover up. So it's away from being covered up. It's just an apocalypse is just telling what's going on. I mean, John could have had an apocalypse about the beginning of the world, or about the middle of the world, or something nice. It didn't have to be about the end of the world, it just happened to be. Okay? I mean, in the other name, the Latin name for the book is revelation. It's the same word, re meaning away from, and then velo, the verb to cover up, where you get veil. And so it's tearing away the veil. I mean, that's what the book is about. And it just happens that the thing they're tearing the veil away from, the thing they're revealing, is the end of the world. And that's what I'm psyched for, because it happens actually that at the end of the world, not coincidentally, there will be an apocalypse. There will be an even greater revelation, even greater uncovering of truth and bringing to light that which was hidden, that which we haven't known up till now. And you got to think about it. I mean, the end of the world, well, it's always the end of the journey. I mean, there's this word eschatology. Eschatology means the study of the farthest, coming from the Greek eschaton, meaning the end, the farthest. And I mean, for instance, Alexander the Great, he conquered the known world, basically. And everywhere he went, he established cities, naming them after himself. Alexandria here, Alexandria there, Alexandria in Egypt, that's the most famous one. But there are a whole bunch of other Alexandrias. And one of them is way out in Central Asia, in Afghanistan, I think. It's Alexandria Escate, Alexandria the farthest out. And it's interesting, not long after that, after he conquered Central Asia, Alexander went to India. But when you reach the Indus River, kind of the traditional border of India at the time, well, he conquered the local king, and he could have gone further. He meant to cross the Indus River and invade India. But he didn't. You know why? Well, Alexander's always excuse was there are no more worlds to conquer. That's bullshit. There are plenty of worlds to conquer. Invade India, Alexander. What's the matter? No. The problem was his troops in mutiny. Couldn't go any farther. The point is that there have always been these ends of the earth, physical ends of the earth, whether they're established by physical characteristics of the planet or just by people's abilities. Okay? And when you get to these ends of the earth, that's when you find things out. You find things out about yourself. Alexander realized that his men had found something out about themselves. They couldn't go any further. They could not be away from their home for more than 12 years. They had to get back there. And Alexander realized, well, he was not enough of an inspiration to his troops to make them go farther. And yet, he had gone as far as it really seemed humanly possible to go. He could go back to the tomb of his father, the conqueror Philip II, and say, look, Dad, I carried on your work. I carried it as far as it could go. Now I can come home. Of course, he never made it home, but that's not really the point. The point is that there are these physical limits. We imagine when people really believe the earth was flat. That's not true. I don't think anyone ever believed the earth was flat. But let's say they did. You sometimes, on the cover of a book by Daniel Borson, I think, The Explorers, there's this famous picture which was once thought to represent a medieval concept of the world, and it turned out to be a 19th century forgery. But it's a guy coming to the edge of a flat earth where the dome of the sky meets the earth. And he's sticking his head out through the dome and seeing what's out there. Well, is that what people really thought? I don't know. When you think about it, what if there really were edges to the earth? You would, of course, they would be probably in remote, inhospitable regions, but you'd come there and you could not possibly go any farther. I mean, most people would not have gotten that farther because to them, you could not have gone any farther. There are seas, there are frozen wastes, there are deserts. But imagine if you really couldn't. Well, maybe if you had an airplane, whatever. But imagine if there really were borders. Time when there really were borders. But that's where you'd find things. That's where, at the very edge, we could not travel any further. I mean, that's why today people go to the North Pole. That was the fascination of the North Pole. There must be something there that we'd find out, because we can't go any farther. That's the end of the Earth at the South Pole, or in Alaska, or in Patagonia. That's the fascination of Patagonia. Okay, it's the end. You can't go any further. Therefore, that must be where the treasure is. It's like in, at the end of the journey, there's got to be something you find. You know, in the Knight's Quest, or at the end of the trial and tribulation, you've got to find something. For instance, in 2001, where David Bowman, after this enormous trial of this battle with Hal, the insane computer, manages to turn it off. Then, finally, only then is the purpose of the mission explained to him. Only through this tribulation do you get to this knowledge. And an experience of mine once. One night, during the first few months that I lived in the Boston area, I lived in Cambridge, and I had the habit of taking long walks at night. And since I didn't know the area very well, one of the reasons why these were long walks is because I frequently got lost, and it took a long time to find my way back. And one night, walking through Cambridge, and I got lost. And finally I came out on this one street, and I looked, and there was a bridge in front of me. And it was night, and the bridge was all lit up. All along the bridge were lights. And it led to Boston, which was all lit up too. Now, I didn't know anything about Boston. I had never walked there. And I barely knew Cambridge. And as I came up to the bridge, I thought, I've come to the end of the world. I mean, I could cross this bridge and go to Boston, but there was something about it that said, yes, I'm a bridge, therefore I lead someplace, but I'm also a border. Therefore I say, don't cross me. Don't cross me yet. And there are all these other occasions, you know, where you feel you've come to the end of the world, or you, what actually I thought this bridge was, well, all I can think of is in Norse mythology, there was the Rainbow Bridge. What was it called? Bifrost. The Rainbow Bridge went from the realm of men, Midgard, to the realm of the gods, Asgard. And it was guarded by Heimdall, with this great horn, actually, which he would blow on the day of Ragnarok to summon the gods to the final battle, the end of the world. But I digress. I thought that, you know, mortals couldn't cross this bridge. That's why I was going to leave it alone. I had come to the end of my knowledge. And or another time, I just remember also, I was cycling on Cape Cod on a bicycle tour, brief bicycle tour, and I decided, well, I wanted to ride out as far as I could go on the elbow of Cape Cod to Chatham. I rode as far as I could go, and finally I came to a beach, and there was this ocean there. So I couldn't ride anymore. I thought, well, you know, I've done it. Like Alexander, there are no more worlds to conquer. And the same thing, actually, in summer of '92, when I first came to this area. I went all the way out to Ocean Beach, watched the sunset into the Pacific Ocean. Thought, well, I've gone as far as I can go. I've reached the end. Have I learned something? I don't know. Maybe not yet. That's why you've got to keep looking for ends of things, because that's where the knowledge is. Now, what about, there are other kinds of things that will happen at the end, if you think of the end as, well, infinity. And I know, well, you might argue infinity isn't the end. I mean, the end means that there is an end, means it's finite, right? But, I mean, that's where it comes from. The word finite means ended. And yet, I have this feeling that infinity, as we conceive it mathematically, well, it's got to mean the end of the world. You think about asymptotes. Asymptotes, the mathematical concept, maybe you studied. You know, it's let's say you're graphing the equation x times y equals 1. Okay, and x is along here and y is along here. Okay, well, when x is 1, then y equals 1, so you put a point here. And when x is 2, then y equals 1/2, because x times y has to equal 1, right? And when x is 1, y is 3, then y is 1/3. Okay, so you get this line gradually slowing down. But as x gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, you know, 1,000, 1,000,000. Well, then y is 1/1,000, so it's getting real close to the axis, but it's not touching it. You know, when x is 1,000,000, then y is 1,000,000, and so again, it's getting even closer. But it's not touching. Okay? The whole idea is that because in order for y to be 0, well, 0 times anything equals 0. So if at y equals 0, then x times y cannot possibly, under any circumstances, equal 1. No matter what. Well, maybe. Maybe at infinity. I mean, for mathematicians, usually saying something can't happen is the same as saying, or saying that something will happen at infinity is the same as saying it can't happen. In other words, that since infinity, is as long as you can never get to infinity. You can think about it because the idea is that the asymptote again, it's the graph that gets closer and closer and closer to the axis. It never reaches it except at infinity because x would have to be infinite. Okay, then that's as far as it'll go. So anyway, so I think about asymptotes. Okay, that asymptotes at the end of the world, at the apocalypse. From the graph, it's going to touch the asymptotes. Okay? And everything, I think also about like parallel lines. Okay, so we've already got, well, these lines were going to converge at infinity, but parallel lines, well, they're not supposed to ever converge. They're always even to infinity. No, I think they too will converge at the end of the world. I don't know. I had this experience once. I was riding my bicycle one night, and I was riding up a road, and like most roads, it seemed to narrow as it headed toward the horizon, by the laws of perspective, and I didn't think anything of it, except that as I rode along, I noticed that the sides of the road actually were getting closer together. It wasn't just that that my eye was the perspective program that we got programmed into us was making me see that. It was that the sides of the road were getting closer together. I was actually getting closer to the vanishing point. It wasn't always the same distance away. I was getting towards the horizon. Finally, as I came up to the top of the hill, the road converged. Two sides, the parallel lines had converged. I went back to the place the next day. Everything was normal. But I was sure I was onto something. I was sure I was onto an end of something. I was reaching the vanishing point. I was reaching the horizon. I had another experience that night as I was coming up that hill. I could ride no-handed. And oh, come on, not think anything about your experienced cyclist. Well, I'm not really a very experienced cyclist, and the point is that at the end of the world as we know it, everything, because it's the world as we know it, right? So everything we know disappears as replaced by everything we don't know. Every 0 becomes a 1. Every 1 becomes a 0. Everything is reversed. Black becomes white, white becomes black. Everything that was is undone. Everything that was possible before is now impossible. Everything that was impossible before now becomes possible. And I, never been able to ride no-handed, was suddenly able to ride no-handed. It reminded me of a book I once read by Walter Miller, Canticle for Leibowitz. Very, very good book, science fiction book, a classic actually. And the book is in 3 parts, and it deals with kind of humanity's reconstruction after a nuclear war in our time, maybe after another nuclear war. But the third part, there's one of the characters, the third part taking place about 2,000 years after the first nuclear war, as I said, in our time. There's still a lot of radiation-induced mutants around, people with various mutations and deformities. And one of them has a second head on her shoulders. One which is apparently dead, doesn't talk, doesn't do anything, doesn't move. She keeps the veil. And by the third part of the book, humanity has rebuilt to the point again where it's capable of the great achievement of building nuclear weapons and destroying itself. And actually enough, there's another nuclear war. And after that, the woman, her head, the living head, dies. But comes to life. So many things like that, where just things, impossible things will happen at the end of the world, or even, I said that lines that were converging at infinity do converge, and lines that were never going to converge at infinity do converge, and even lines that go off in the other direction. See, there was a song once I heard, and it went, will we all meet again at the end of the world? And yeah, see, even people who, you've gone off in separate directions, right? So the distance between you, instead of getting smaller, instead of staying the same, is actually increasing. At the end of the world, we'll all come back together. Because there's no reason not for you to be together. There's no reason for anything to be separated. There's no reason for anything to be hidden. It's over. The game's over. Okay? No reason to keep secrets anymore. Okay? No reason for the universe to keep anything hidden, because it wouldn't be fair, because there's nothing to do anymore. There's no game to play, so why do you need rules? And that's the beauty of it, is that we'll all come back together again. We'll all be in the same place. All those long-lost people, see them again. We'll all be standing at the banks of the same river waiting to be judged, if you believe that, or we'll all be in heaven. We'll all be there. Same place. That's the beauty of it. We'll all meet again. That which was impossible will become possible. And now, I use the expression "the end of the world as we know it." But one problem is that, the end of the world as we know it, as opposed to the end of the world as we know it. See, the end of the world isn't the same as it used to be, even a few years ago. I mean, the idea of a cataclysmic, total destruction of the world. Even just a few years ago, when communism still ruled half the world, and they had thousands of nuclear weapons aimed at us, and we had thousands of weapons aimed at them, there was the possibility. We were all never more than 10 minutes away from complete destruction of civilization on this planet. Sudden, complete, that would be it. End of the world. And now, fall of the Soviet Union, victory in the Cold War. Oh, sure, there's plenty of nuclear material around, but maybe some terrorists will get it, but they'll blow up one city. But the possibility of sudden, total annihilation, the Dr. Strangelove, which of course, remember, the final song of Dr. Strangelove, as the bombs are going off, we'll meet again. The Canticle for Leibowitz, the day after, the 80s, all this nuclear war hysteria. Lots of great post-nuclear movies scare the crap out of me. But now, you can't write about that stuff. It's not. If you think about the end of the world, if you think about our total destruction of our civilization, well, how is it going to happen? It's going to be environmental. Ozone layer will open up. We'll all get fried. Gradually, the seas will rise. Will be drowned. But it'll be gradual. Take 20, 30, 40 years. I don't feel I can get the same revelation out of a slow apocalypse as out of a fast one. I'm not really as psyched for the apocalypse, for the end of the world as it is now. I like the end of the world as we knew it.